Hello and welcome back to another episode of Transport Fever 2. As we can see by this overloaded station here, we are in much need of vehicle upgrades and improvements pretty much across the whole map. Almost all of our stations are overloaded, almost completely full with goods and people waiting at them, and it's been a little bit since we've upgraded anything. Actually, I don't think we've upgraded any of our vehicles since we've placed their lines down. So now that we're starting to get into steam and diesel vehicles, upgrading from horses is going to be a very much needed improvement for a lot of our supply chains. So first, let's start over in Jackson with our truck lines coming out of our port here. So let's come into the Scottsdale tool line, and we'll just simply replace those vehicles with something faster and more powerful. And I think something along the lines of just these steam tarpaulin trucks will be just fine for what we need. They're much faster, more powerful, and carry just slightly more. Not too much, but maybe a tiny bit more. And hopefully it won't continue getting hung up on these hills. As we can see, private transportation is starting to pick up with their own vehicles and starting to create some traffic in areas where it's difficult for our vehicles to get through. So now we'll just continue on with the rest of the lines in this area, and we'll try to vary these a little bit. Since this one's carrying construction materials, we can use an open bed truck for that. We have our food line. This one needs upgraded, and I think we'll use these vehicles. So we'll replace those. And then the last one we have to deal with here is the machines line, which we can just grab. Let's see here. Let's just go with another steam tarpaulin truck. So now hopefully we'll be able to see this port regularly become empty, as opposed to being completely full in some places. I didn't want to add too many trucks because I didn't want to completely fill our main road that connects Scottsdale and Jackson, although it is getting used very frequently by both private and our own transportation. So speaking of our transportation in Jackson, let's also upgrade our buses so that they're faster, so that we can compete with a lot of the private transportation going around. And I think we'll keep the capacity kind of low, but this vehicle is definitely the fastest, even though it keeps the capacity the same. So I think we'll prioritize speed, and that'll incentivize more people to take the bus as opposed to driving themselves, since hopefully our vehicles are faster than the private transportation. So we'll just have to see how that shakes out in this area. So now we can see our vehicles going around on the roads through this area. One thing I'm immediately noticing is all of our cargo vehicles are starting to have private transportation and faster vehicles pile up behind them, as we can see with this truck coming by right here. So I think maybe we can also justify upgrading this road to a 4-lane road, since this will probably be one of the major roads that runs between these two cities. And we can just extend that all the way into this intersection. So hopefully that'll allow our buses to pass our trucks and private transportation to not get so held up in all of our traffic. And so we'll leave this as such and move on to a new area. So coming over to the line we started this episode off with, our construction materials line, I think we could definitely afford to get larger boats in here. And just thinking about the best one, it's looking like the Klondike here is a pretty clear winner in terms of capacity and speed. So let's go with these. I'm a little hesitant to add another vehicle yet on this line. We'll see what it can handle with these two boats, but maybe later on we'll come in and add a third boat to this line so we can start to empty out this port. So now over here we probably have the area that desperately needs these upgrades the most, and that is all of our lines running to the food processing plant. As you can see on this road, we just have horses, and we have a lot of them. If we just fly down on this road, it's very full of horses transporting grain to the food processing facility. So if we can get some faster vehicles on these roads, that will greatly increase the output coming out of this area. So we'll just grab one of these lines and replace them with the fastest cargo transportation we have. So it seems like it's these steam trucks yet again. So we'll just get a bunch of these flatbed trucks to replace them. So we'll replace those two lines, and then just for a little bit of variety, we'll grab this one and we'll make it a tarpaulin truck. So we have a little bit of variety with the vehicles coming to and from on this road, although not too much, as they all still pretty much look the same. But hopefully that means we'll begin to see some of our farms level up, especially out here, as these don't get picked up quite as much. So hopefully with our faster vehicles, they can come much more frequently now. And then the next line that we need to look at is this one here, where our horses are just crawling up this hill all the way to Sacramento. And you can see the elevation difference here as we look all the way out onto the food processing complex where they're coming from. You can see just how much higher they have to get. And looking here, they are struggling at 3 miles an hour pretty much the entire trip. So if we can get our most powerful vehicle to run on this line, we'll be able to greatly improve how much we can transport up to Sacramento. And just taking a look here, even at its worst on this hill, these trucks are already doing 8 miles an hour, which is a vast improvement on what we previously had. It's almost 3 times faster now. So hopefully we'll begin to be able to empty out this platform for all the food going to Sacramento. And I think that's pretty much it for the trucks that come in and out of this food processing plant. We did have this upgrade once, and so it's starting to look a lot more filled in compared to the other side that we built up. So I'm excited to see what this looks like once it starts to fully upgrade and get to the later levels. So I think the last place that needs upgrading is this little area over here where we set up our first logging camp area. So we have horses going back and forth, and I do kind of like the horses here. I like the idea that the horses are bringing the logs over, so maybe we'll keep that. But I definitely want to upgrade these guys, because it seems like our machine trucks are getting stuck behind the horses. So we'll just grab this line manage the vehicles here, and we'll replace those with, I think we'll replace them with some of these flatbed trucks. They run at the same speed, so we shouldn't run into any traffic issues with our own vehicles in this area anymore. Now, one line I did notice still has horses is this one over here that supplies Stockton with tools, but I like the idea of keeping Stockton a smaller city, almost more like a riverside village, so I think keeping horses, at least for a little bit longer, sort of fits the feel of this town. And if we look here, there's not really any big buildings, besides right here on the main street. You get some, what are these, commercial buildings right along the main street. Everything else is just small houses, and I think the horses sort of help keep that feel in this area. And of course, we have one line, I forgot about this one. This one's still running horses. We definitely want to move away from them on this line, since it's a pretty high capacity line that we have running. And for this, we'll go with, let's go with these vehicles, just to change things up a little bit. So I'll put those on there, and then we'll replace these, and we'll use the flatbed trucks for this line. And then lastly, for vehicle upgrades, we'll grab this line that takes the fuel into San Jose, and we'll just replace them with some tarpaulin trucks. So the next thing I want to do in this video is go around to a couple of our cities and start getting them ready to basically be connected up to our passenger train network. And we're going to get them ready by just getting a simple bus loop in each city, just to start generating growth and passenger movement within the city, so that once we connect it up by train, eventually we'll already have a bus network in place that can take them to the train station wherever that may be for each city. So let's start here in Albuquerque, and a lot of these cities are still very small, so our bus networks are going to be fairly limited when it comes to getting things ready. But what we can do is sort of simplify the roads and make sure the roads are extending out in a way that makes sense when the city starts expanding by itself. So we'll go with this small simple loop for now, and I don't believe this is connected to any road depots. Actually, it might be connected to this one over here, so we'll just come over and we'll grab a few of these buses. We don't need anything crazy at the moment, since we're just moving a few people around in a pretty small city at the moment. So we can have that set up, and Albuquerque should start growing pretty soon. Next, we'll set up Winston-Salem, so we'll connect up some of these roads just so they make a little more sense. Something like that. And then we can come in here, get a bus stop down in pretty much each corner of the map. I believe that covers everything. And then we'll just place a road depot somewhere outside of the city, maybe next to an industry, so it looks alright. Although, we could maybe fit this in the city, but I just don't like putting road depots inside of cities, since they take up space and don't necessarily match the style. But we could fit it right along the coast at one of these intersections, so we'll put it right about there. And then as well, we can get just a few buses and then get them going around in a circle through the city. And the last city I want to get going is Montgomery. I didn't realize the land was so hilly over here where Montgomery is. Seems to really be struggling in some areas, but I think this will be a pretty unique city if it continues to grow down the hill instead of into this valley. But anyway, we can get our bus stops down. So we'll get one there, one up here, and then another one over on this side. And then we'll just need to find a spot for a road depot. Although I think we can use whichever one is connected to all of these. So coming out from the steel mill, we will then grab some of these and set up the city of Montgomery. So now it looks like our buses are making their way through each city that we've set them up in, and they are now going around, hopefully starting to transport some people. And these three cities are probably the first three once we decide to expand our passenger network that we're going to connect to. So we'll have a little branch that comes off here and follows the river into Albuquerque, and maybe Winston-Salem will come off the same way and then bridge over again. Not too sure yet. And then Montgomery, we just extend the train line through these sort of flat lands that run this way and then up into the city. Some other cities are going to be pretty hard to get to, such as Birmingham, that's squeezed all the way up in the corner of the map here. It's a pretty straightforward way in and out, but it's a very steep incline to get up here. So handling that's going to be hard, which is why we're going to put that off into the future. And then of course we have the city of Mesa, which is pretty much stuck on this island until we get enough money to build the expensive bridge that is required to cross this gap, which is a few $100 million if I remember correctly. Yeah. At least 300 million from what I can sort of get from here. But we are getting there. We're sitting at about 35 million. So once our things begin to upgrade and get more modernized, I'm sure we'll definitely be able to make those bridges at some point. So lastly, what I want to do in this video is just go to some areas of the map that we've sort of neglected a little bit with detailing, such as this port here into Santa Clarita, and just go through and add a little more detail to it to make it look a little more built into its surroundings and not quite as bland. So just to make these feel a little more built up and thoughtful to match the level of detail that we've put in other areas of the map, such as over here. Even though it's not much, it does add a good amount to how this area feels. So we're just going to go through to some of these underdeveloped areas and just add a little bit more to each of them. Alright, so we got this port a little more detailed up and looks pretty good, I think. And as we get more stuff coming in and out of here, we can obviously add more detail, more containers, more things to make it look like it's being used the amount that it actually is. But since we only have one line coming in and out of here, I think this looks good for now. So next what I want to do is come to this steel mill and put in some parking spaces to help fill in some of this empty space here. And for this, I think we'll just go with some larger, sort of what would be for trucks. And hopefully we can get these to align fairly well. And these would be for like really large trucks. So we obviously don't have those just yet, but in the future we probably will. So just having the infrastructure set up for that in the future will be pretty helpful. So I think we'll stick with this amount. I think we have to just flatten out a tiny bit of terrain over on this side just to get that to show up. And of course we can still show cars parked in here. And we'll just find some trucks. And we'll get some that fit with the style of the year. So these are a little bit more future focused, but I don't think it's too bad. We'll just get one down there. I think that helps fill up the space a little bit, provides a little more context for what's over here. Maybe we'll add them on this side as well. Not too sure yet. So then it'd sort of almost be like a loop around this central cargo area. Not too sure, still sort of figuring it out, but I think this definitely does help make this area look a little more filled in. And another thing I would like to do is add parking up here at the train station. With this being a very large train station, probably what's going to be our main passenger hub in the future, it would make sense that there would be parking. I think for now we're just going to do it in these small pockets next to the station, but in the future I think that'll expand out to across the road into these patches here as we leave this park relatively untouched, as it'll probably continue to extend down towards the river. Alright, so here we go. We have our parking lots set up, one on each side of the station, and I think this helps fill in the sort of empty space that we had between the station and the road. I think it looks good from a distance. Yeah, I like it. So I could see that sort of expanding over to here in the future once this whole area fills in. But I think we're pretty much going to leave it at that. Now, I know we've jumped around a lot in this video and didn't really get too much done, but I think the upgrades that we did to our vehicles and our routes are very much going to be beneficial in the long run. And also, it was just a good way to spend time while we let our money build up. We're almost at $50 million now, almost at the point where we can get that bridge, hopefully. But anyway, this money should be pretty good in helping us setting up future lines and getting more expensive vehicles, especially as we begin to look with expanding our passenger train network. Getting a lot of those bridges and tunnels are going to be expensive, so this was much needed. And with that, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions or feedback, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.